morning, we've heard, as Devanshu said, as we've been talking through all our panels today, what does the future hold and what do you need to be doing? Fashion today, not tomorrow. You need to try and forecast what customers want now, not what they might want to buy months ahead. Make it affordable. Cost efficiencies at the sourcing, the manufacturing levels, these are going to translate into high scalability and brand visibility across target markets. End-to-end technology. The technology needs to be deep across the board through the supply chain, not just used to create superficial wows at the front end. The brand experience, store locations, store displays, product dynamism, these are all the powerful elements of marketing and brand experience that you need to be integrating into your sales strategy. User-generated fashion. We just heard from the panel right before this. Leverage that connected customer to develop, to co-develop intuitive product design, create tailored shopping journeys, enhance brand engagement, and customer research. That real-time research with the data that you're collecting, that's what allows you to create product design strategies that meet customer expectations going forward. To continue on that theme, digitization and the future of fashion and deciphering the new codes of the fashion business, we have a great inaugural panel here at IFF 2019. And I'd like to call on stage Abhishek Ganguly, Managing Director, Puma. Mukul Bafana, CEO of Arvind Internet. Prakash Nedungari, Group Head Consumer Insights and Brand Development at Aditya Birla Group. Sandeep Kataria, CEO Bata India. Vasant Kumar, MD Lifestyle. Lalit Agarwal, CMD at VMart. And to lead the discussion, founder of Train, B.S. Nagesh.
Thank you very much. Very good morning to all of you. Oh, can you leave 2 chairs in the center for me, please? I need 2 chairs in the center. Yeah, 2. Very good morning. Hurry. I thought morning the whole lift crowd is here. Is this the way you... Very, very good morning, Niftians. Now you know what the audience is. Yeah, I just wanted to check on that. Very quick audience check. How many of you are students or alumni of NIFT sitting here? Raise your hands. How many of you are retailers? Running retail. How many of you are from the property business? How many of you are from the fashion business? Oh, many Niftians are not raising their hands. What's happened? Not from the fashion business? Wow, anyhow, very good. I have left those 2 chairs because I thought when you're talking of digitization and future of fashion, you can't have all oldies sitting here. Average age is 50. If you add me, 54. Yeah? Okay, anybody here who's 18 years? Anybody at 19? 20? 19, 20? Come. That chair is for you. Okay, we have a she customer for us. Any guy who is here 19, 20, fashion, techie? Hi, come here. You're 19? Show me your birth certificate. Please come there. Okay, please join the panel in the center. I thought the best way to talk about digitization and future of fashion is to talk about people who are actually running fashion businesses, creating fashion businesses tomorrow, but also people who are probably consuming fashion today, and also people who probably will talk about fashion tomorrow, yeah? So you're looking very nervous. Hi, what's your name? Smruti. And your name? Aditya. So we have Aditya and Smruti who are representing us from the audience, and they're also the future generation, and we're going to talk about the future of fashion. Ladies and gentlemen, a great round of applause for our panel here, please. Okay, before I get on to the whole panel, what we are trying to find out for the audience is, what does the current fashion business look like? What could be the possibilities in the future? How much is the role of digitization, online, offline? And what is the way forward that we can actually get on to really see how the business can be taken forward? And therefore, two of you, Aditya and Smriti, yeah? The two of you will actually talk as customers, which is the current and the future. So if you think any of the oldies, they're all CEOs, huh? But I'm calling them oldies, they're my friends. If any of them are talking nonsense, you can stop them. So this is not the way it's going to happen, okay? You are on Instagram. You are on Instagram. Do you blog? You don't blog. You blog? No. You follow some blogger? No. Okay. Oh, so still we require many more people like that. Anyhow, I'll start with you, Prakash. You have seen the business in the early years of fashion, 20 years back or 15 years back in Madura, you were running that. From then till now, and now you're sitting at the Aditya Birla Group headquarters, probably looking at much broader level from the helicopter view. How have you seen fashion change and the consumer insight that you've got in the last 15 years? Keep the mic near your mouth so that, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Nagesh, and just great to be here, and I'm glad to see that there are a lot of young folk who we can learn a lot from, including Smriti and Aditya. Please feel very informal here. So I'll talk about times when you were not born, and to the times of today when I feel I haven't been born, because this is a different age. But I'll tell you, Nagesh, some things have changed a lot, and some things are more or less the same. And that is a source of great delight and an opportunity, but also a source of concern. So what's changed? I think some of the obvious has changed, you know, the smartphone, the digital, the internet, the Wi-Fi's, and therefore the ability to access anything, anywhere, anytime, in your locality, in your city, in your state, country, or in the globe. And I was just surprised, you know, we do a lot of consumer interactions, dipsticks, and I was talking to young folks in some of the small towns a couple of weeks ago, and they're hyper connected to all over the world in terms of fashion, not just fashion brands, but they're also ordering and consuming them. So that's changed a lot, right? The world is at your footstep, if you like, and that's a big change for the consumer. Access also, because of online, has become much easier. E-commerce has become much easier in many ways. What has not changed to me is a lot to do with the supply chain. So when I see some stores and I see the pace of fashion, I see the turnaround of things that are happening, I see the amount of sales that are going on, things are discounted, you know, 60, 70, 80%, buy one, get six free kind of thing. You know, it has changed for the worse, if you like. It's become slower, it's becoming clunkier, and the perception of value is not coming through. So I think there are some great opportunities for us in the next few years, yeah. And there are some things that we have to address as well.
We'll talk about the opportunities as we go
And
forward,
as we go to that, I think it'll be a big opportunity for the fashion industry. The other part, which is interesting also, not so much in the apparel space, but for example, in the jewelry space, is, for example, things like 3D printing, which are allowing huge amounts of localization, specialization, and variety that those kind of industries could not see before. So there is fashion coming through in those areas, which will be a big opportunity as well.
So I'll pick up on two threads for what you said. One you said is what's happening in the smaller towns. People are more aware. And the second, you talk about the interconnectivity, you know, how people are so connected. Lalit, you have been the master of creating MBO business in the hinterland, and of course, fashion is a very big part of it. Just talk to about the small town behavior, and how is it different from the big town behavior that you have seen, especially keeping fashion in mind.
So, good morning.
When he says good morning, let's say good morning, come on!
Good morning!
Some energy in the room, please.
So I think fashion is as energetic, as vibrant, as we can find even in a big town, what I'm able to see in small towns. What we have seen, either people who have passed a luxury segment are a little bold in fashion, and people who have in the bottom segment are very, very bold in fashion. And they can adopt, they don't fear to adopt any kind of fashion. And they want to experiment all kind of fashions. And today, with all this digital world coming in, the ability to get the information is much, much more higher. They consume the same set of information that we consume in metros or in US. They look at similar movies, they look at similar serials, they chase similar fashion. So the fashion need and the fashion aspiration, I think, is almost similar. And the small town behaviors are almost similar. The only aspect which is differentiated is the fact that the small town guys don't have too much of money. So the fashion need is there, but the affordability is very, very low. So they will always require at their pocket size, and obviously they can't buy it multiple number of times, so they would need a better quality. They would need a better quality which can last longer, which is also needed in a small town. So that is largely there.
So the fashion that you sell at 350 and the fashion that people in town sell at 750, are they overpricing or you are underpricing?
I'm rightly pricing.
You have to learn how CEOs, they manage to speak the right words, yeah? Sandeep, you also, you run Bata, which is all across the country. You've gone into hinterlands. My question to you is, how did you build the proposition of fashionability? I used to work for Corona 20 years back. We were fuddy-duddy and you were slightly above the fuddy-duddy. Today you are so fashionable. What is the proposition that you take to smaller towns, especially in terms of fashionability? And talk about the Bata becoming fashionable in the last 5 years.
Thank you for, first of all, saying we are more fashionable. So the messages are coming through. Glad to hear that. I think Nagesh, just to add, and then I'll answer your specific question to what Lalit is saying. I think the world is more flat than it ever was. Yeah. So what we see, the demand coming in through the smaller towns because of the access of information, of the net, etc. Now the quantities might vary. The proportions of high fashion in a big metro versus a small town might vary. But one of the joys as we've rolled out our omni-channel solutions into smaller towns has been the demand that we are getting from the smaller towns for our higher fashion products, right? Which has been quite amazing. And
just give an example of what you mean high fashion product. Take any SKU and tell us.
So, if you look at it in footwear, the way I would classify would be some would be the traditional shoes, which we've sold for a long time, more semi-traditional, a bit more contemporary, and then fashion, going on that spectrum. In shoes, slip-on, pointy, with matrix designs on the tops. We're seeing when we're looking at the orders coming in on our omni-channel, a lot of them are actually coming from the smaller towns for these kind of things, which our supply chain today would not have allowed us to get there.
Bold fashion, stilettos.
Very bold. See, stilettos is not necessarily about fashion. It's about what the use is for. Okay. Do I really have the roads or the streets in those towns to be able to walk with the stiletto? I wouldn't recommend that, right? You don't want people...
Even Mumbai, you can't walk with stilettos
exactly.
on.
So I think we need to be sensible about what we recommend. But yes, high platforms, absolutely. Coming through in those towns. About taking fashion to the lower towns, what we are seeing, Nagesh, is another very big trend, which is even as you go down Pop Strata, there are cores in each of those towns which are ready for higher fashion, where the permission to pay is much higher.
Oh.
Okay, so there is a concept in marketing, you say permission to pay. What are you ready to pay for a certain kind of a thing? And there are, therefore, cores that we see as we go down. So what we do in Bata is if you open 6 stores, we have different segments of the stores itself. We are seeing that we are having to open more and more of our high-end stores as we go down Pop Strata. So within every 6 stores, there will be one store which actually mirrors what you will see in a metro town. And there are people, those are very successful stores for us. So the democratization is happening. Not all 6 stores carry all our fashion merchandise, but surely one store in any 6 will
You're very confident on the Indian consumer, whether it is the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4.
Absolutely.
Yeah? Mukul, I want to come to you and then go back to Vasant. You're working on the net. Yeah? How different is the net consumer when he comes from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 stores? And when you talk of fashion, connectivity, and digitization, is there a difference than what your counterparts in Arvind see on the brick and mortar?
Yeah, so this question actually is a good question only because Arvind for us is the top of the pyramid.
When he says it's a good question, sometimes you can clap for me also. I'm asking right questions. Yeah.
we work with a lot of brands and retailers in India. Arvind obviously is more focused towards the organized top of the market. But if you start working with partners like Bata, for example, as you start getting to tier 2, tier 3, the consumers are different. There is, like he said, there is an innate demand for fashion when you start going down the pyramid. And part of what you're doing as a partner with our brand partners is to ensure that the access is given to that tier 2, tier 3 market. That being said, and this is a larger point for the industry, which is, I think the way we approach omni-channel, right, as a strategy and going into tier 2, tier 3 with digital, is a bit broken because we are still focusing much more on the top of the pyramid. We assume that the shoppers in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 are the same as the ones that are shopping in the larger cities. The bigger problem also is that we're always stuck with this question of, is digital ROI positive in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4? It actually can be very positive in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. This is the approach we take. So for example, the one thing that we don't think of is we think of Bata's customer or Puma's customer in tier 2 in the ecosystem. But really that customer is actually much more exposed across industries, across experiences than just shoes in tier 2. Our goal is to hyper-optimize our channel play for our customer. But really what you want to do is digital gives you the power of network effects and complements, which we highly overlook in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. Our goal is to try to open 200 stores, 300 stores, 400 stores, websites, and try to get deeper into the pyramid. But really, can you piggyback on existing infrastructure? Can you create a different type of store experience in tier 2, tier 3 that leverages complements and network effects? I'll tell you an example of this. There are other players who do a tremendous job of going down into tier 2, tier 3, 4 cities beyond fashion as an industry. We're trying to solve the problem of building our own infrastructure, our own channels. But we don't think about how the customer who is using Uber in tier 2, tier 3 can also have that same experience in fashion.
Wow.
Why don't we think about this as a larger industry to solve rather than saying my channel, my customer, my tier 2 store? So these kinds of models have to change over time for us to really make that tier 3 customer more in line with your brand in terms of what you want to do with that customer.
So maybe after one or two questions, I'm not going to talk about tier 2, tier 3. I'm just going to talk about Indian consumer because looks like the customer is all pervasive there. Vasant, you are running Max, value fashion. Now you're running lifestyle and everything together, which is slightly premium. Okay? How different is this customer? And you can probably pick up and talk about the online experience that you had in the last few years of starting off. And then I'll keep going younger to the generation. Abhishek, you're last. Younger, Puma, sportier.
First, I want to give a contrast between value customer and premium customer. Actually, over the past 7-8 years, that line has blurred. Today, the accessibility of a premium garment or a value garment is as much there for the metro customer. The customer simply chooses to go for a value fashion or a premium fashion depending upon one's interest. And to a certain extent, less on the affordability part. In a value fashion, they may consume more. In a premium fashion, they may consume less. That's how it is. The biggest contributor is the expansion of malls. When you have mall penetration, it actually promotes fashion consumption. And predominantly, many of the malls, they are more fashion, the availability of fashion is much higher. And there's a lot of activity. It includes promotion, sale, and all that. So it improves the consumption. The typical customer we see are coming at least 6 times a year, be it a value fashion or a premium fashion. The shopping is more in a value fashion and less in the premium fashion. This is the contrast. Coming to the online, today, India, the top 100 million customers, the online consumption is complete. Everybody is very comfortable browsing online. Thanks to the e-commerce wars that was happening and is happening, there is no issue of customers browsing. And the customer discovery now is through the mobile. The first 100 million customers, consumption starts with the mobile to see their interest. And then they decide which channel to choose and how to consume. So that way, value fashion consumption is higher. Premium fashion, it is lesser. But you can see people coming up and down.
So if you had to advise the
Yeah.
students and the alumni sitting here who want to start their own business.
Yes.
And if they had 100 rupees,
Yeah.
how much will you ask them to put in online and how much you'll put on offline?
See, to me, again, the line is blurred between online and offline. Today, the real smart business proposition will be if you're able to see a catchment, customers who can be connected with your unique proposition, it's better to lock into them through your online connectivity and having experience through offline. So it's a hybrid of online, offline with niches with which you can have a value differentiation.
You almost answered like a consultant. Huh? Ye bhi karo, wo bhi karo, jo hoga tum dekho. Huh? I love that. I love
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Abhishek, everybody said they have grown like to like 8%, 9%, 10%. You said you've grown like to like 25%. What is it that sports brands are doing? I met Skechers somewhere here and he said he's growing 40, 50%. He told you not to tell you that he's growing 40, 50, but that's what the growth is. What is happening into the fashionability of the footwear business that suddenly there's so much of growth? And what are you all doing differently? You're also online having a very large presence. Share that with us.
See, to be honest, we are also lucky to be working on an opportunity.
Why is it only you are lucky? We have been working for 30 years.
I'll explain that. I think first and foremost, sports is growing. Let's face it, India has become sportier than ever. There are more propositions on sport, more sports growing, not just cricket, more than ever. India has a better FIFA ranking than in the last 20 years. There are more Olympic medal prospects than ever 20 years back. There are more sports being played in badminton, squash, and you name it. So one is that the sports as a category is growing. Second is sports is getting fashionable. You were talking about what is fashionable. I think it's sneakers which are getting fashionable, right? And I think women are wearing sneakers with dresses, and people are wearing sneakers to offices, to clubs, to just hang out. So I think that's something that is really fueling the growth around sports and lifestyle brands, sports lifestyle brands, and we're really leveraging on that. So I think that's one thing which I would say. But overall, as if I have to specifically talk about our success as a brand in the country, I think what we have been able to achieve, because we have been a multi-channel player for a long time, and we have always been open to reimagine our business model and look at how we relook at our business and focus on newer things, more convenience for our customers. And I think that's really, really worked. So to his point of the hybrid model, we've been actually practicing that, and we really believe in that the lines have blurred. Consumers today discover products online, on social media, on various blogs, through influencers. Then they come to a store, they might buy there, or they might try the product, go and again buy off online. And the brand or the company which will make this entire experience very seamless is the brand that will win.
I think there's a very key word that I've captured called lines are blurred. And it is true. I mean, most of us who started off our career with brick and mortar used to run the stores for 12 hours. Most of the customers are shopping 24 hours. So there's no way that we can sleep the 12 hours that the customers are shopping. So we have to be total. Before I come to the customers, and I want to come to you. Yeah, before that, how many of you actually participate in marathon? 10K? Oh, I'm trying to talk to the future. Maybe they participate 21K and 42.
5K
okay.
maybe.
Half marathon? Not bad. Full marathon? 5K? 1K? 100 meters? You don't have a bright future. You don't have a bright future. They're only going to wear all sneakers and nothing else.
Probably 10 years back, there would be only one person.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you are an optimist, yeah? Okay, what I want you to share are 2 or 3 things. First of all, talk about yourself, your fashion, your wardrobe, okay? Where do you buy from? And second is, do you agree with any of these things the gentlemen are saying? You can also pick up the mic. After that is you.
So my point is mainly to do with the last thing you said, but about myself, I'm 19. I moved here from the United States, and I think my fashion sense would be a little bit more mundane, maybe a little bit more not traditional, but I like to call it timeless. I think I find my purchases often recurring and not that, there's discovery, and that's where I had a conflict of understanding. Definitely I agree that seamless is like where everybody's going, but I have a feeling that a lot of customers actually have a need to discover in store. So like I'll give my use case that I personally wish I could apply in my real life. So this shirt, say I bought this from Levi's, and I wish there was a way, I know I'm going to want to buy another color of this shirt in 2 months. I wish there was a way that I could go online, because I already know this fit is good for me, I like the styling. I wish there was a way I could go online and see this is the purchase I made in store, and I could open that up, maybe select different colors, different quantities, and reorder, knowing and trusting that I know what I'm going to get. And that's something I wish I could use online for that I can't right now.
That's a very interesting observation. He's saying you are capturing my data, expose my data that you have captured back to me.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, what a wonderful thing. $1 million. There'll be some VCs who are going to, if anybody starts a business, please give him 1% and me 1%. Yeah? What about you?
10%, please.
Yeah. Oh, 10%. This is the problem. You know, youngsters are greedy. They don't want to work. 5 minutes on the dais and he wants 10%. No, no way. Yeah, introduce yourself. Talk about your shopping. Yeah?
I'm not. Hi, my name is Smruti, and I'm 20 years old. I'm not really a person who goes offline to shop. I'm mostly an online shopper, and I really like to dress tomboyish and not very girly. So the options are very less for me, and I really want to have more cool clothing and stuff like that.
So in a very subtle way, she said, I want cool clothing. All these guys are not cool. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I just want to check on the audience. How many of you only shop for fashion online? Only online. Oh, just 4, 5 of them. Huh? Look at what's happening, Mukul. How many of you shop only offline? Only brick-and-mortar stores. Okay, and how many of you shop online and offline? So now you see what's happening. There's 2% of, less than 2% are shopping online, 60% shopping offline, and maybe 75, 80% shopping online and offline, both. So let's get into the thoughts of digitization and say, how can we actually take the current business that we all have grown, get it to India, and create a few billion-dollar businesses? Any billion-dollar business here? Not you at a group level. I'm saying at a fashion level you are. Okay, maybe a few billion-dollar business using online and offline. Who wants to pick up? Even you all can pick up. Huh? If you have a billion-dollar idea, you can also talk about it. Yeah? How do we build a business starting from here in fashion using digitization, going online and offline together? Because this customer looks like they want both offline and online. Anybody wants to pick up? A few tips.
No, I think we are sitting in the best space to really build this up. And we, being in the nascent stage in retailing, we can actually leapfrog. And looking at the potentiality that we have, and let me give some answers on Abhishek's part, that why has he been growing. I think it's the youth population, which is tremendously growing in India, and the highest amount of youth population, and this population who's adventurous, who want to try up new, who want to click and be on digitalization, want to buy a Puma shoe, whether he runs on marathon or not, but yes, he wants to buy a sneaker to show it on the digital world. That's the world that we are getting into. So I think the contagiousness of the fashion is going to grow. How well can we adopt that? It's not only about selling digital, but it's also about bringing digitalization in the overall fashion element that we have in the store, or in the product that we drive, or in the supply chain that we have, or in the store experience that we can drive. So it's about linking all those 4 or 5 elements and then driving it to $1 billion. And I don't think within the next 3 or 4 years we should see enough companies in the fashion industry which should be $1 billion plus. You're talking of various companies without giving your company's name. Fair enough. If you're in the stock market, they are listed, huh? By the way. Yeah, Prakash.
So, I was just thinking about what Smriti and Aditya said, and you can just see those two. One talked about his shirts, the other one talked about the kind of clothes she likes. And fashion, we often, in the fashion industry, one of the mistakes we could make is thinking of fashion as the business. Fashion is what the customer thinks is fashion. And you saw both these young consumers talk about fashion in their perspective, and they're very different. So the first thing is that it is very different. And all of you, though we classified you into 3, you probably have very, very different fashion senses as per what you like. Now, as creators of products and services and solutions for you all, What you could do or what we could do is actually to understand each of you. The opportunity that is coming is that there are many of you who can have the same needs. So there are groups of people who want to be like a tomboy or who want to have regular fashion, the same thing over, etc. There could be other people who want variety. There could be people for different occasions who want something. And each of these, and this was not happening before, each of these is a big opportunity. And each of these now coming to digital can be accessed, or they can have access to us. So the important thing, I think, is focus. If you can focus and find the right target group where you say, I want to do the right thing for this group, then that gives you an opportunity to actually understand that group much better. Somebody talked about consumer research. It gives you the chance to tailor products for them, understand and engage with them, and thereby become part of their lives and become part of their fashion life. Sourcing also makes it possible to not stick to apparel only, or to shirts only, or to shoes only, or to jewelry only, but to give an ensemble and to actually curate for that customer and make a business out of it. So if I was to tell you how to make $1 billion business, I would say choose a small group of consumers who will eventually become big and really delight them in a holistic way across their journey. That could be an opportunity, and digital will certainly help in that, both in terms of them accessing you, in terms of solution products, etc., but also in terms of communicating with them and engaging with them.
I just want to pick up the word, choose your customer carefully. And Abhishek and Mukul, I want you to talk about it. Is actually, you see a possibility of going right into the last customer and getting into personalization. If you are digital, if your value chain is very, very smart, then why should you actually choose a target segment or a niche of customers? Why not an individual customer and target? So you have 1,000 propositions for these 1,000 customers.
I think that is the biggest opportunity, in my opinion, personalization, because I firmly believe all of us, and a lot of us have been talking about it. We're still scratching the surface on this one. I think there is huge opportunity led by AI, led by data analytics, and actually the tools available today can really, not just in communication, you can personalize products as well. And I think that's, in my opinion, a very, very big opportunity.
Do you see something like this possibility? I met somebody who said they're starting this out of China, so I don't know.
There is no doubt. The holy grail of omni-channel retail, as we all will realize at some point, is personalization and understand the customer in a smarter way. The problem is, it's a bit of a systems theory issue. We've built, as retailers, we've built system A, which is our store-led, offline-led strategy, which largely relies on building infrastructure and waiting for customers to come. Right? And that's the way we've been stuck in retail for a long time, which is effectively saying that, look, I've built MS-DOS. The customer out there has to understand how to shop my MS-DOS system, put in the command prompts, and get what they want. If you start fast-forwarding that thought, what we really have to build, to his point, is Siri. Right? And that, as an industry, requires us to rewire the system. System B has to be one where a customer tells us a pain point, and our channels work to solve that pain point, not the opposite, which is build channels and expect the customer to find the shopping logic. So if anything, we need to start thinking about focusing. A $1 billion business has to start focusing on using channels to solve pain points, right? Rather than thinking about extending channels into tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 that we keep doing. And if you fast forward that thinking a bit more, it starts from, it has to be digitally led. Because while we all agree that you can't have a business that is effectively only digital or physical, and especially in fashion where touch and feel matters, using digital as a way to screen pain points, to identify how to create a solution for the customer, to connect points in sessions, that ultimately might result in an in-store fulfillment or a pickup, but at least using the right data points to make the front end of the journey much easier for a customer. And whether you call it personalization, recommendation, it's just shortening the entire MS-DOS kind of experience that we have built today.
Sandeep, there's a confusion in my mind, and I don't know how many audience is also thinking like that. I mean, personalization on one end using digital, and second is starting from brick and mortar, which we have already built, and all of you said that you can build another 500 stores, 1,000 stores. Where are we and where do we go? What is the path? Let's talk about retailers like you who are listed, 1,500 stores, 10,000 employees, and a few thousand crores of turnover.
So I think to answer your question, what poll you just took, it reflects what's going to happen in 10 years outside of this room. So this room is already there, but when you look at the demographic trends which are happening in the country, in 10 years, the millennials are going to be 70% of India. And what we just saw of omni-channel, I use both channels to really shop, is going to be the standard across the country. So therefore, I'm going to use the oxymoron, which is the mass customization is going to be real. Yeah, it will need to be, as Mukul was saying, it'll have to start with the, or you were saying, segment of one. But I'm going to be able to then serve you with all the data that I have, the analytics I have, at the individual level. The reality, however, is when you start at that level, but you start working at our scale, you do realize that there is a very large opportunity of using economies of scale to customize. Yeah? So I don't know whether I'm explaining myself, but there is a very big opportunity for mass customization.
It looks like a journey, but the question is you can't wait for that day to happen and get to the customization, personalization. You have to start having a branch which starts working on that.
Absolutely. I think that's where it is. If anyone in this room says or claims to know how it's going to be done, we think we're fooling ourselves. We're smoking our own dope. The reality is we're all learning. And what we need to do is just be open to that. We are an 85-year-old company in the country. Does not mean that we know everything that is to be learned about footwear. I think we need to be open to that. We need to be learning all the time, learning about our consumer, learning about our channel, learning about retailing, learning about how she or he goes about shopping all the time.
So since a lot of us talk about like-to-like, let me do a small research like-to-like. Both of you, keep your hand on your heart and tell us how many more clothes did you buy between last year and this year? They're sincerely keeping hand on the heart. Huh? I love this. I'm always like a professor. Yeah.
I honestly don't know. Probably like 4 shirts.
4 shirts extra compared to last year. Additional.
No, like probably 3. Yeah, I don't increase.
Yeah.
There's no regular pattern.
I don't really keep a track, but yeah, it's more than last time.
More than last time. Okay. How many of you in the audience have actually bought 20% more than what you bought last year? Yeah, so you are looking at this generation which is buying 20% more. So there is an opportunity for us. The question is whether they come to our stores and make it like-to-like or whether they go to some other stores. Okay, none of us will get offended. Okay, so I'll start with me so that if there is how many of you shop at Shoppers Stop? Okay. Now I'll go to, how many of you shop at V-Mart? So you know you are at tier 2, tier 3. Okay, what about Max? No, I'll ask for lifestyle. What about lifestyle? See, you have a large number there. Bata. So we still have customers here. Puma. On the internet. For Arvind, I'm saying. And of course, Madura Garments, Linen Club, all the brands put together. So you have like-to-like opportunity. There is like-to-like growth. There is 20% growth happening. And they are buying more and more. So I think that opportunity is absolutely available to us. We'll also go in between and go do some question answers, but let's come to the point of fashion. And he rightly said, when you're talking of fashion, it is not about what we think, but what a customer wants, and the fashion is from their side. So how do you look at building fashion for the future? I mean, if in Puma you have to think of building something more fashionable, where will you go? How will you go? What should be the direction? A lot of them are from the Fashion Institute here.
Well, I think the first and foremost is to follow trends and make your imagination to bringing products in store shorter. I think it's about shorter lead times because fashion comes and goes. And we have seen that very, very strongly. If camo is in today, it might not be tomorrow. If a white sneaker is in today, then it might last for 1 more year, but we don't know. So it is extremely important. Speed is critical in fashion business. That's the biggest learning that I have. On growing fashion business, just to go back to your point on to create $1 billion opportunity on fashion, I think it's most important that every year one should take a step back and reimagine the business. Because to get to what Mukul was saying, one has to explore new things and new ways to doing business. Like, there is no one-size-fit-all. You open stores and grow. You have to look, okay, there are delivery partners coming in today, companies who are delivering. Can we look at that opportunity? Having said that, India still, today we are available in 120 cities. Maybe there are 400 more cities which can take a
Bata is already in 600. You could just take the list from him, 600 towns.
Absolutely.
Easy. Collaboration can work very fast.
So I think the success in fashion industry is going to be on how, and I think that's why I like the word innovate fashion, because it's about reimagining, and reimagining quick, and every time re-looking at the way you're doing business. Because what worked 5 years back will not work today.
So let me move over to innovation, reimagining, innovation. Vasant, how do we build capability? First of all, the question to the panelists is, for this kind of an ambition that the Indian fashion industry has, do you think that we have capability available to build the fashion industries to reach there? Second is, when you have the capability, how do you build an innovative mindset in a company? All of you have run fantastic companies.
I do believe that there is capability in the country and with our professional cadre which we have. India has amongst the largest fashion graduates coming out every year. India is amongst the largest exporter of fashion. India, by far, is the largest consumer in terms of digital. You have the broadband free, virtually, and the handset is very affordable. So finally, what is happening is there is a demand, and then we have the highest number of aspirational consumers. The first 120 million online customers have already happened, and the next 100, 150 million customers are being discovered. So you have a huge pool. What now is required is to come out with models which can ride on top of it. Today we are a 200 billion fashion industry, out of which barely 30% is organized. There is 70% which is still unorganized. And if you are able to reduce the wastage, today 50% of fashion merchandise is being sold on sale, which means so much of inefficiency is there in misreading fashion, in misreading the sizes, and misreading the fits, misreading the months, timing. After 50 years of fashion business, we are doing half the products on sale. So unless there is collaboration between the manufacturers, between the service providers, between the brands, between retailers, this wastage can be oriented in a manner which can benefit both the company who's producing as well as the consumer. If that happens, there is enough profitable segments that can emerge over the next 10 years, wherein there is much more value-added fashion that can be given, which can also be met profitably. And another important thing, which I again earlier told, India's expansion of malls is a huge advantage. Malls are still a place where customers congregate. While today it may not be the place where they discover fashion. Fashion is being discovered online first, but that's the place where they consume fashion. 90% of the purchases are made in the malls and in organized retail. So if you're able to connect that through collaboration, by reducing inefficiencies, by being faster, and also being more connected with the customer. Today, the time and the ability which we are putting together to understand the customer is frankly less. We are more busy liquidating merchandise than understanding the customer. If that shift happens through analytics, through the digital tools which are available, over the next 10 years, I am seeing a lot of these professionals can make a mark in the fashion industries viably.
Sandeep, I want you to concentrate on this question. You said you're an 85-year-old company. I'm sure you must be having people who work for 10, 15, 20 years. Okay, please express in terms of capability, because I believe that unless businesses have good capability, you can't build capacity. And how do you change the mindset of the existing? And thirdly, how do you lead them towards innovation? Because, I mean, you are a classic example of an old company doing new things.
So you're absolutely right. So we do have our stalwarts who've been with Bata for 30 years plus, and we have quite a few of them, very, very lucky to have them. But the median age in Bata is now 32.
32?
That's right.
Oh, then I'm wrong. Yeah.
No, but that's right, because there is two diametrically opposite sets. So we are able to leverage the knowledge that comes with having been in the business for so long. But we also recruit almost 100 management trainees from FDDI, from NIFT, from the NIDs of the world, which we need to bring in, to be able to bring in the new winds, to bring in innovation. And to me, fashion is partly about trends, but in our business, only I would think that part of fashion based on trends is probably 1/3 of it. The 2/3 of it is actually innovation, and real innovation which is relevant for India. Let me give you 2-3 examples. So all kids wear that we have this year onwards has ingredients in it which makes it antibacterial, which kills odors and helps the kid ward off bacteria. For high-end dress shoes, the Ambassador range, etc., we now have the waterproof range which says, walk through rain, don't worry about your leather shoes. Yeah, relevant innovation for India is actually taking us into the direction. And for that kind of thinking, I think we need the newness, the novelty. What that blends in with our older knowledge base is to how to be able to take it from the, on the drawing
Concept
board,
to production line.
from the drawing board
Yeah.
to actual production, and to be able to produce it in our factories which have been around for all these years.
Tell me, as a CEO, what do you do specifically in a day or a week or a month which actually takes and leads this whole motivation towards innovation? What is your role in that? Some secrets.
If I said I knew the mantra, then I would be lying. I don't think any one of us do. But I think what it has to start from is that you need to have the belief in the fact that you do need to adopt, change, and move with the times. And realize just because you've been successful all this while, the same mantra will work in the future is not going to be true. I think it needs to start from that belief. And when you've been successful for a long time, mental envy can set in. So that needs to be shaken. Every now and then, I think that's my biggest task, is to go into the room, and some of my colleagues are here, they will vouch for it. You go in and set off a cracker every now and then, bring in one of these young gentlemen in from the consumer who tell you that the hard truth, which might not be very tasteful, unfortunate.
In one of the conferences, we had a very unique situation. This whole panel was only people between the age of 16 and 21. And we were asking them, saying, why do you think that we, the so-called matured CEOs, are not doing well? He says, because you have a fear of failure. You are very successful. Therefore, you don't try. Yeah? So I think I will ask Abhishek, Mukul, Prakash to talk about how do you foster innovation, allow trials in an organization without the fear of failure at an organization level, CEO level, and the youngsters who join. Because and if you want to use some digital inputs in that, please go ahead and do that.
So one of the things is it starts with the top, and this fear of failure is one of the big issues. I hope you all don't have that, and you'll be able to do much more than many of us did. So at the end of this year, in our New Year's message, our chairman, Mr. Birla, sent out a message and specifically talked about experimentation and the fear of failure. And and he talked about how we have to fail to be able to find out what is going to work, and looking at that as a sign of success. And since then, we've been doing more and more experiments. The advantage of digital, the advantage of 3D printing, the advantage of many of these things is the ability to experiment faster. How fast can we experiment? How fast with a new idea? How fast can we test it with consumers and find out, if it's viable and feasible? And if it isn't, how fast can we kill it and move on to something different? Because that's the thing about what happens in our minds. How do we stay unattached to an idea until it becomes something which has real potential? So we are doing several things in our group to first of all understand consumers better, but more and more build in this habit of rapid experimentation and rapid turnaround of results of that. And while at the same time, really celebrating and learning from the failures that we would have, because we would inevitably have them, to be able to find those gems which are going to succeed. And everyone is going to be a gem, actually. So that's what we're doing, Nagesh.
Abhishek.
So I'll talk something very soft and very cricket analogy. When the spinner bowls and the batsman dances down the track, and if he feels that he can get stumped, he will miss the ball and get stumped. But if for him to hit the 6 out of the park, he has to believe that he can hit that 6.
And dance. And dance also.
And dance, yeah. So I think successful organizations which innovate, create that culture, where the fear of dancing down the track is not there. Because if you have that fear, you'll always get stumped.
But what do you do to create that culture?
So it is. I think you have to demonstrate that yourself. I think there are times when I would go up and say I failed, and there has been an instance I can talk about 3 months back when I walked up in a town hall and it said I failed. And I think when you say that to an organization which has 3,500 people across stores, and I think you're actually saying failure is not that bad, because I can fail, everyone can fail. And if you lead by
But do you also give some kind, for example, when you're doing your budgetary allocation for assortment or for a new product, are you willing to say, or do you say that, hey guys, don't worry, experiment 5%, if it fails, nothing, don't worry about it?
Absolutely.
Is there something like that you do as a plan?
Actually, you're snatching something out with what we already do. Like we would say that 10% of our merchandise in a store is like venture capital. You know, it can go either way, right? And that's how our merchandisers are for example, allowed to take that risk. So it's not just that. I think it's a much larger thing, which is about an organization culture, where you always, when you really want to, you need to give examples to your team on what innovation is and how innovation, failure through innovation will never be criticized. And I think if you give clear live examples, I think the youngsters get it. Because they're always wanting to experiment. They're always wanting, they want 10%, right? When you offer 1%. They're always wanting more and always wanting to do new things. And if you can click with them on that idea, I think you have a successful organization.
Mukul, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Actually, this fear of failure, it is more to do with the way the companies set their KRAs. If you load the KRAs with internal metrics on the P&L and your other metrics and give less weightage to things like NPS, customer experience, that's how people will behave. If you increase the weightages, you see actually every employee wants to be innovative. Every employee wants to be experimentative. We curb them down by putting the P&L as the main and disabling them to do all the experimentation. All you need to do is give more weightages to the customer and metrics. You will see the behaviors across the organization.
I'll come to you, Mukul. How many of you believe your parents allow you to be experimentative? Not bad. No, we are not so bad as a generation. You know, my daughter always says, I want to do this, you don't want to. Okay, that's wonderful. Her hand is, you really feel your parents are very, very experimentative. Wonderful. Mukul.
Yeah, so we're a little bit of a different DNA because we're a younger company, so I'm not sure we have the same kind of legacy in terms of pushing people to fail. Our average age of the company is 27. The only difference we make in terms of, so obviously what the gentleman said in terms of failing fast, learning from mistake, that all holds. But we take a slightly different approach, which is we like first principles thinking. We like system B thinkers in our company. So a lot of what we look for in terms of innovation and taking risks has to be around, identify the real problem to be solved. Right? A lot of us get stuck, as Vasant said, in this entire, taking a herd of people and telling them, look, march with me north to Delhi, and all of us move together. We think of it differently. We say, firstly, look, is Delhi the right place for us to really go to as a company? And if so, think about the fastest way to get to Delhi. We don't have to all walk together. So part of the objective and the result-setting process in the company has to be that of saying, align the common goals. But let each person think of a first principles approach to get there as fast as possible. And whether it's taking risks, whether it's taking a safe route, really is up to you. But let's pull up and create a system B rather than saying, look, let's do everything that the world is doing. If you can ingrain that thinking, you naturally start taking more bets, you start learning faster, but you keep the end objective in mind. So that's how we really kind of foster innovation in the company.
Before we open to the audience question and answer, I would like the customers on the days talk about it. First of all, talk to us about what do you think about all this CEOs talking? Were they making some sense, or you thought it was all nonsense?
Obviously, they are making.
Obviously, they are making sense. Okay, so you don't want to be experimentative in your reaction, yeah? Your comments on the whole last half an hour of discussion, as a customer, as a consumer, a young consumer, about fashion.
I really feel that we are underestimating the small towns a lot. We should really, they should really scale themselves there and give them opportunity to buy stuff and try new things.
Okay, what about you, Aditya?
I'd say the future looks bright and I can't wait for it. Just kind of wish it was now. And looking forward to the time when the technology and the experience of interacting with these businesses is on par with something like when I interact with a Google service, where everything is, they know me and they see me as they see every part of me that when I interact with them. And I can't wait for that to happen in fashion and in retail.
Wonderful. Applause for our customer part of it, the two youngsters who joined our panel. And we'll open up a question answer. Only request, keep it to only question, no comments, please. Keep it short. If you want somebody to answer, we'll do that. Can we get the mic here first? After this, I'll come that side. Any hands on there? Yeah, that gentleman. Please go ahead.
So I was over the weekend shopping with my daughter. So the first thing is that we went online and she added a few things to the cart wish list, and then she didn't end up shopping. And then we went to the mall and she didn't end up shopping there as well. So I said, Omi, are you in a bad mood today, or what's the reason? And I said, what would you really want to have? And that is when she said, Dad, if I'm trying a pair of, nice sandals, in the physical store, is there a way the ensemble could come on screen and it will help me buy that? So the phygital thing, what we're seeing, the fulfillment is happening, but it's not really fulfilling for a consumer. On either space is what I see in my generation or my youngsters or my children as well. So
when I spoke to your daughter, your dad and you went to shop online and went offline. Why you didn't buy? She said, my dad was always over my shoulder. So leave her alone, she'll shop. Anyway, this was more a comment. So we'll go that side, please. There was a gentleman standing there. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to know one data from the retailers here. What are the average inventory turns of the Indian retailers, and how much money they spend on design and product innovation as a percentage of their turnover compared to global players?
So I will change the question. Don't ask for India retailers. Why don't you specifically say, what is the turn that you get and how much do you spend on R&D in terms of fashion? Is there a particular allocation that you do? Anyone who wants to talk about it?
So in our stores, so these are the Louis Philippe, Van Heusen, Peter England, etc. We will get about, on an average, about 4 turns a year is what we would look at. Now that varies depending on the range, etc. But that's roughly what we would take up. And if you asked about the expenditure on design in innovation, as a percentage of turnover, it's not that much actually. But you've got to add up a lot of other things as well. You've got to add up what we do with our suppliers, to work with them, to create new experiences, to create new ideas and pockets. So if you add up the expenditure we do across the value chain, I think, I don't have an estimate for it, but I think it would be fairly substantial. But as such, when you scale a business, the advantage of scaling a big business is that the individual expenditures on design innovation come down. If you asked, it comes down as a percentage of sales. In absolute amounts, it's still very, very substantial.
I can give you a way to calculate this. Somebody said 50% of the business goes on sale. Okay, and after the sale, only 50% is sold. The balance 50% is not sold and returned and thrown back. It's all cost of innovation. Yeah, at the end of the day, what doesn't sell is a failure. Yeah, that's what it costs us. Yeah? Yes, please. We go to the second block and then we'll come to the lady there. Yes, gentleman with the pink shirt. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Radhakrishnan from Litmus 7, a company which focuses on retail technology and retail singularity. So my question here is that when we really talk about digital, most of the time we see the discussions, moving towards the online. But how do you see digital becoming a disruptor within the brick-and-mortar stores and becoming like stores becoming more of like a experience center rather than the point of contact where I purchase something? How do you see that transformation happening within the industry?
See, treating online and offline separately, I think, is already outdated. Today, we are talking about the connected customer, unified customer. What digital does, it gives high tech in terms of the experience visually, what you can do, assortment and all that. And offline gives high touch. How the world is moving is, it's integrating. If you're able to get as one of the audience asked, the benefits of wide assortment, which is seen online, if it is available offline through a combination of physical availability plus maybe through a kiosk, and the high touch through the customer service representative, then you get the best of both. Similarly, on the online, if we are able to get certain products trialed in their house by ordering them and try at their house, there are online companies who are doing that, then again the high touch and high tech happens. So it's a convergence which is the way moving forward. But the thing is, you should do the convergence in a viable manner. If you're able to get it right, customer consumption will even further go up, and there'll be a lot of models which can be around that. In US, there are a lot of models which are worked around that. I'm sure some of the models will get implemented in India as well over the next decade.
We'll go here, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, this is Anvesha from ShopperStop. I'm the product manager for customer experience. And my question to all 6 of you is around personalization. So at ShopperStop, we have started with personalization, and it's doing amazing. It's doing really well. I just want to know, why aren't we in, like most of the Indian companies, we are not going big on personalization. Maybe we don't see that as a priority, because it's, you can really help us drive sales even to offline. I just want to know, because we were talking about personalization, and I don't see, a lot of work around it happening yet.
She didn't disclose some figures. I can share the figures to bring relevance to it. From almost nil today, 16% of the business is happening through personal shoppers in ShopperStop. And the personal shopper's average transaction is 3.5 times the average transaction of others. So we are seeing some huge uplift happening because of personal shopper. And now the personal shopper is going home and actually serving the customer home during the time of shopping. So if she's...
Also talking about personalization.
You're talking about personalization. Oh, wow.
Actually.
Sorry, it's not personal shopper, personalization.
So just to answer this, when we start looking across our partners and what their efforts are in terms of personalization, there are kind of core endemic issues that you see that are stopping people from doing more of this. So it starts from simple things in terms of having data availability, right? You have a lot of channels you sell through, but to be able to pull that together and make sense of it, that's the bare bone kind of ask that you need to even start doing something like that. The other is the quantum of data that you have. You might have all of this pulled together, but you don't have enough of it to actually start making sense of it. The third is effectively taking that data, if you have enough of it, and starting to have the right competency to make sense of it. Now, getting to step 3 is a luxury for most people. If you're at 3, then you start investing into either vendor partners or your own teams to be able to do it. But most importantly, and this is where the digital world will change things, is that we're not able to glue a lot of these experiences back to the store or our other channels. Is that we'll do this sort of channel-isolated data collection, personalization. But the key difference between your digital world and your physical world is that, unlike the physical world where each of your channels, sales channels, are all different, the digital world, you can start connecting dots in a much smarter way. And so the fourth horizon for a lot of brand partners is to take all of your digital channels, because your marketplace data, right, and your online store data for shopperstop.com shouldn't be different data. You should be able to access, make sense of it, and then bring it offline for usage. That fourth step is the toughest. That's the upper echelon where people struggle. So depending on where you are in this series of steps, people struggle for different reasons. Now the fifth echelon, which is where we don't even scratch the surface, is the world of the super apps, the mega digital plays, where you start working with complementary businesses and pooling data together to make more sense of a customer. That I don't think we've even come to in India in terms of the way we use data.
But your question at ShopperStop is regard to personalization of product or communication?
Product.
Oh, okay.
So we are using personalization already, and if you see our homepage or the landing page, you will see at least 30% of personalization being used. You see products targeted to what you have been browsing for. So that's where I was coming from, because we see good numbers, we see a lot of success, and that's the reason why I wanted to know, why so late? Like, we should have been there already with a lot of Indian companies when, nobody's really doing it except for some online players.
Okay, so we'll not get into a discussion here. Yes, please, go ahead.
I just want to add on there.
Oh, yeah, please.
If we look at the overall retail industry and Indian retail industry, the traditional retail industry, every mom and pop guy who sits there at the store He knows what the customer wants. He knows what she has used. He knows how old is his son, what kind of product will suit her, what kind of product will suit him. So I think it's all about how do we bring in those capabilities at our front end. And we think of doing it, we try to do it. And at the front end, the team, how well is he connected with the customer? How well does he know about the customer? That's going to create that change, and that's going to create the personalization piece. Because personalization is not only about, showing them something, but it's also about believing and understanding what their requirements would be, and what can actually they consume, and how do you treat them so that they know the customer's name, and the customer knows the counterpart, your sales staff's name. That's how the personalization piece can kick in.
But why do they call them as traditional and unorganized?
I mean, they are traditional. Yes, they are traditional, but not unorganized. I don't say unorganized. I think they have a big server over their shoulders, and they maintain that.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Sumit. I'm Sumit Gupta from Global Organic Textile Standard. We are into certification for organic textiles. My question is to Arvind Internet. Today morning in the panel, we spoke a lot about sustainability and ecology. And last year also, Myntra presented a report in which they predicted that the consumption in India of the sustainable products like organic textiles and so on will increase threefolds in the coming years. My question is that at Arvind Internet, then when you, how do you look at, what is your experience with the sales or ratios of the sustainable products like organic textiles and so on in the Indian market?
I'm not sure if I'm the right person to answer this question. From that point of view, I think one of these gentlemen probably...
Anybody has a substantial business in sustainable products that you can talk of?
Well, we have a global strategy on sustainability, and we believe that, by next year, about 40% of our products have to be sustainable. And also, a lot of it has to be, proven sustainable, not just having some materials which are sustainable. Having said that, yeah, absolutely. Having said that, I think in Indian market at this stage, I think the awareness of sustainability is extremely low in the consumer's mind. I'll give you an example. We opened a store in Bangalore which was 100% carbon neutral. I think the adoption to that concept was not very natural, even though we really pushed for it. Right? So I think it is our responsibility as retailers to keep pushing the boundary on this. It is more a responsibility of the business to create that awareness. And I'm sure at some stage this will grow because globally it's extremely high. Western Europe, for example, sustainability is a key topic in the fashion industry. And we are one of the most unsustainable categories. Like, for example, garments we were talking about. It's extremely unsustainable because they're not recycled. Right. And every year there is more and more and more and more garments happening. So it's a very, very topical point. But I think we all need to raise the awareness. The businesses have the responsibility.
So I think on this note, probably we'll close this session. So everybody has to be more responsible. I'm sorry, it's 1 o'clock and I have to close. That's fine. Everybody has to be more responsible. But for this responsible audience and those two responsible customers, thank you very much. Thank you.